The Greater Bangor Region held a ribbon cutting today for the newest addition to the waterfront in Brewer.
1, 2, 3. Woohoo!
This new digital kiosk is the first of its kind in the area, according to the GBR. It's packed with features and information aimed at assisting community members and visitors alike.
There are maps, directions to other walking paths, event announcements, picture-taking abilities, as I demonstrate here, and even games. Those behind the project say it's about enhancing the waterfront experience while promoting regional connections.
My hope is that either a resident or visitor is just taking a stroll and is either wondering, oh, what else can I do in this region? Or they see a passive information that will be scrolling about other upcoming events that are happening in the region. And so they see the wonderful things that are happening that they might not be aware of. For instance, the Celtic Festival that's happening next weekend. We have an advertisement for that right now. So there's so many things that are happening within the GBR that people might not be aware of. This is just another touch point for being able to elevate and promote what's happening.
This is the first of 5 kiosks the GBR is installing around the region. There will be 3 in Bangor and another in Old Town.
The entire project costs about $135,000, with the money coming in the form of an award through the Maine Office of Outdoor Recreation.